Try to picture it. Your struggling, very avant-garde artist moves from his downtown loft to a nice, affordable apartment in the suburbs. Not quite the starving artist in garret image we all picture. But Vancouver artists are being squeezed out of downtown because of the economy, and a lot because of what BC Place has done to downtown real estate prices. Struggling artists have a choice of becoming suburbanites or leaving town. Frank Fry has more.
Gastown. It's trendy and fashionable, but above the gas lamps and cobblestones there lives an unseen community of people. They're not living here to be fashionable. For them, it's the only place left in Vancouver to work. They're artists, not making any money, but holding on to the hope someday their work will be accepted. Louis de Soto is one of those people, a painter who's been at it for 10 years.
Why are you into this particular style?
Mostly I'm doing these small ones for fun. You know, have a bit of fun with color, have some fun with these objects. That's not to say there isn't any meaning in these, any content. I mean, this little man is going to be chasing this little fish forever. But I'm not trying to be heavy at all with these. It's mostly entertainment. You know, as some of the others, I try for something different.
Yeah, some of the others you're referring to, maybe you can, we can walk over here and you can explain this one to me.
Yeah.
This is quite different than your most recent form of painting.
Yeah. Usually after doing something like this, I go to the small ones where I can enjoy myself. Works like this take me a long time to do. And I try and put a lot into these, sort of sum up all the things I'm thinking about and feeling about. I try and make a moral and psychological statement with these paintings.
How successful financially are they for you? What's your future hold for you?
Right now, I don't seem to see any future in Vancouver. You know, there's a very limited opportunity here for an artist.
But Louis, like the rest of us, must face day-to-day economic realities.
It's a real scramble to find studios here and to keep them. Especially now downtown is being developed. Architects are coming in here and putting condominiums in. You know? Of course, that forces the artists out who are living in these old buildings.
Artists' homes here are generally leftover brick-walled rooms, remnants of a once thriving industrial area. Years ago, economic pressures forced these industries to move. The story today is much the same.
I'm going to move to Toronto. Not because Toronto is a nice city or anything, but it's the art capital of Canada.
Many artists in the same position as Louis will be forced to move. However, there are still those who want to stick it out, in spite of the Spartan conditions in which they must live. One of them is Bob Vandermeer.
I'm living in this kind of situation because I have to, in a way, in that I need studio space, and I'll sacrifice living in a cushy apartment or a fancy house in order that I can maintain what I do.
Don't you get a feeling of rejection from time to time? Does that bother you?
It bothers me to some degree, but again, if I have to weigh that against the highs that I get from doing a good painting, for instance, something that turns me on, I'm high for 2 weeks. And I could care less if other people like it or not. If I feel like I really have accomplished something, and if I get a lot of peer group support, if that support's there, if far out you've done a real nice one, that's all that I want.
Some days, some of these artists may sell their work, be commercially successful. But will it be in Vancouver? Is it important to encourage them to stay? Do they have a contribution to make to our culture?
Sure, I'd like to have a small art community here or a bigger art community here. I think Vancouver, if it's going to grow up to be a city, I think, you know, some aspects of civilization must occur in a big city. It's unfortunate that in some respects that Vancouver is the world's biggest logging camp. And it makes it awfully hard for people involved in the arts and following perhaps their own little aesthetic carrots. They're finding a very difficult time here.
Desperate. And I mean, that's the only word to describe it, because nobody is good enough to be good, but we need to work at what we're doing, and there's no place to do it.
This is Orf. He's a silkscreen artist and photographer. As with the other artists, we couldn't show the outside of the building he lives in. This area is zoned commercial. Use of the buildings is restricted to business only. Orf is living here illegally.
Like, the romantic notion of artists in garrets is fine, right? But there's like a garret costs $500 or $600 a month if you're lucky. because I mean I need a certain amount of space to be able to work in. Like, it just has to be open, it doesn't have to be large. Like even a one-bedroom apartment would be fine as far as area is concerned, but they put walls and divide it, like they divide it up into tiny little compartments for use for each little tiny space.
Why wouldn't you move to a less expensive place, say like Richmond? Could you do the same kind of thing in Richmond that you're doing in Gastown?
No. The kind of art I do is very social. I cover new music and new art and new people. And I don't know how I would do that in Richmond. Do you?
The way I walk is just the way I walk. The way I talk is just the way I talk. The way I smile is just the way I smile. Touch me, baby, and I go.
Fiona Mackay's work has received favorable response in Toronto and New York galleries. Vancouver remains apathetic.
My art is dealing with androgynous characters that I see all around me. It's also anthropomorphic in terms that it's, I think some of these things, especially the painting behind me, is dealing with an animal-human sort of crossover. Most of them are sort of aggressive. However, I'm not trying to sort of punch you between the eyes. I'm merely trying to say it as directly as I can, what I feel about the culture that I live in. It's a direct reflection of the culture that I live in, which at the moment is very loud, aggressive, and colorful. Living in a studio is interesting. It's definitely not always fun, simply because you don't have the conveniences that you do in an apartment. I like it. I have other artists around me, but they don't really, they don't sort of interfere with your life that much. It's just sort of a camaraderie, but not a direct interference. It's not like living in an apartment where everybody's bugging you and phoning you all the time. We all share a common interest. We're all expressing our inner sort of, our inner selves, I guess, if you like to put it that way.
The way I walk is just the way I walk. The way I talk is just the way I talk. The way I smile is just the way I smile. Touch me, baby, and I
Performance art is originated, I believe, back in the Bauhaus days when a lot of the early artists sort of did cabaret theater, which is like, it can be political, it can be simply an expression of your inner sort of ego, alter egos. It's dealing with all those kinds of characters that people believe they are. I mean, most people do them in Halloween once. I do them in performance. I do 4 or 5 characters in one performance, and they're a direct reflection of my two-dimensional work. Every culture allows for different levels of artistic expression, be it theater, be it art, be it music. There has to always be the forefront, that is the avant-garde, because that paves the way for the commercially viable. In other words, when Jackson Pollock did what he did, he was avant-garde. He is now commercially viable. But at the time he was doing what he was doing, he was avant-garde. Nobody, same with the Impressionists. People sort of went, oh God, what's this?
Photographer and sometime gag writer, Mark Murphy.
You rolling?
Murph doesn't like to be interviewed.
Hi, this is my buddy Renfield here. Renfield was Dracula's fall guy. It's actually actor Al Willows, who was the patient Renfield in the play Dracula. But a lot of artists are expected to act like this. And with economics being the way they are, you can't blame them. Anyway, come on into my studio. I'll show you some pictures. It's just this way. Hey, watch out for those beer bottles. They're worth a dime apiece. Come on in. This is my studio in here. Are you with me? Yeah, come on in. This is my studio in here. As you can see, I'm into a pretty mixed bag of pictures. I do a lot of different things for different reasons. And this guy here, he dropped in one day because he wanted to get checked out. So I put him on the copy stand and, well, he checked out. I sent him off and I haven't heard from him since. Oh well. Lately, I've been doing these small paintings because I'm trying to make the great leap onto canvas. I'm doing it slowly so that I don't end up like my buddy Renfield out there. And like that. This guy here, this was a trip down to Seattle, Washington, and this is called 1010 at the Vance. This guy here, he called for room service late one night and he was told there wasn't any anymore. So with one leap, he jumped, hit the floor, bounced off the bed, hit the window, and screamed for room service. I bagged him with the blad about 3 a.m. Rather proud of this one. Anyway, have a look around. Don't forget my palm tree. Have you met my palm tree? Speak up. Oh, it's shy.
Well, some are more avant-garde than others.
Thanks for coming.
However, there are some artists in the downtown area who do make a good buck. Lutz Hofschild is a sculptor and stained glass artist. Lutz has his downtown studio but lives comfortably in a suburban home, paid for by large commissions such as the stained glass windows of Westminster Abbey and Mission and the River of Light at Coquitlam Center.
We got to be really clean, though. The first few years definitely were not easy. I wouldn't want to have to go through it again. And I think that's average. I'm seeing a lot of my friends like Ken Wallace or Scott Blear, they're all achieving sort of a certain amount of recognition after working for 10, 12, 15 years. And I think it's not just that people are ready for them, it's also that the people themselves are ready too, the artists. It takes a long time, it takes a certain maturity. So it's a lot of things. It's not just that people don't think a lot about artists or don't care about artists. It's the artist also has to grow. We definitely are making a contribution to society, which even if society has different priorities, it's still a contribution which puts a different aspect, a certain value on life, which has a great impact, even if people don't realize it, you know. Well, it's a pity, I think, and it's also, because, you know, you can't, some people tend to think that it's the bad ones who get kicked out, but there's a lot of talent there which should be developed, and they should be given a chance. And if you don't help them, if government doesn't help them or private enterprise doesn't help them, there might be a lot of talent going down the drain, which in future years could have done some incredible thing for this country, you know.
These artists are trying to survive the economic conditions of today, as we all are. They live in far worse conditions than most of us, receiving rejection of their work almost daily. But they persevere. They believe they have a contribution to make to our culture. However, it's only a matter of time before rents and lack of public acceptance force them to move to a less parochial center.
Well, thanks for coming. See you next week.
Coming up, the always colorful Bill Dobson.